Soft morning light cuts through the dusty glass. Evelyn Rees pushes the door open, and the familiar chime rings once, a sound she hasn't heard in 20 years. The air inside feels heavier than she remembers. Every clock on the wall ticks out of sync, like a room that lost its rhythm long ago. She moves through the shop slowly, fingers brushing past broken watch faces, old invoices, and her father's neat handwriting on yellow notes. The smell of oil and rust follows her. A sudden crack under her foot. The floorboard gives way. Evelyn kneels, pulls the wood aside, and sees metal. A rusted iron hatch sealed tight. She hesitates, her heart pounding louder than the clock's. When the lock snaps, a chill rises from below, air thick and metallic. She shines her phone's flashlight down the narrow steps. Rows of shapes glint in the dark. Then she freezes. Pale faces. 10 of them. Seated. Silent. Each one holding a small pocket watch against the chest. Her scream breaks the silence of 20 years. Narration. Evelyn Rees came home to close her father's shop. But under the ticking silence, time had been keeping bodies. Rain taps against the window as Evelyn scrolls through unread emails. Then the phone rings, a number she doesn't recognize. Miss Rees, a calm voice says, "This is Inspector Morgan from Haverfordwest. I'm sorry, your father passed away last night." Silence. Only the sound of the rain fills the room. Evelyn stares at the small clock on her desk. The second hand twitches, almost mocking her. She hadn't spoken to her father in years, not since their last fight. Not since she left that town and swore never to return. The inspector explains there's no family left to handle his estate. She's listed as next of kin. The shop needs to be cleared before it's sold. That night, Evelyn packs a single bag. Her movements are automatic. Toothbrush, coat, car keys. She pauses by the door, eyes resting on an old photograph on the wall. Her father smiling, his arm around her younger self. Behind them, the shop's wooden sign reads Rees Horology. Time repaired, time restored. She exhales slowly. Time repaired, she whispers. Right. Outside, thunder rolls. She locks the door, steps into the rain, and drives toward the town she tried to forget. Narration. She didn't come for answers. She came for closure. But some doors don't close, even after death. The sun barely rises when a narrow street fills with police vans. Neighbors stand behind fences, whispering. The yellow tape cuts across the old watch shop like a scar. Detective Malcolm Rees steps out, his coat flapping in a cold wind. 10 bodies. No records. No missing person reports that far back, an officer tells him quietly. Inside, forensics teams move carefully. Every creak of the floorboards recorded, every clock photographed. The faint tick of hundreds of stopped watches echoes like ghosts counting seconds. Down in the basement, the air is heavy. The walls are lined with watch parts, gears, chains, and a workbench still neat, as if the old man had just left. 10 white sheets cover what Evelyn found the night before. Each corpse holds a watch dial, its hands frozen at a different time. Evelyn sits upstairs, silent. Her fingers tremble around a cup of untouched tea. Malcolm walks over. "You found them?" he asks. She nods weakly. "Anyone else had access? Just him," she whispers. "My father never let anyone down there." Outside, the crowd murmurs. "Didn't they say all those missing men were last seen near this shop?" Malcolm glances toward the basement door, his voice low. "Let's find out what time stopped here first." Narration. Every clock he fixed stopped ticking the day he died. But some secrets keep running long after the hands freeze. The town woke to the sound of church bells, but inside the small shop at the corner of Mill Street, another kind of ticking ruled the air. Thomas Rees began every morning the same way, winding the clocks, polishing the glass, setting every second back in order. To him, silence was chaos. Time was control. The shop looked ordinary from outside. A wooden door, fog display window, a hand-painted sign, Rees Horology, since 1952. But inside, it was a world of endless rhythm. Hundreds of clocks surrounded him, each beating like a small metallic heart. He spoke to none, smiled at few. The neighbors said he kept to himself, ate alone, and worked through the night. Some nights, light glowed faintly beneath the shop floor, a narrow beam escaping through the cracks. Those who passed by claimed to hear faint sounds, a hammer's tap, a low grinding, something being dragged. No one ever asked questions. No one ever dared. Every evening at sunset, Thomas would lock the shop, check his pocket watch, and glance once toward the cellar door, as if time itself was trapped down there, waiting to be wound again. Narration. Some men collect hours. Others collect silence. But the watchmaker, he collected what time forgot. The air in the basement is still heavy, a mix of rust, oil, and something older, almost human. White-suited forensic officers move carefully between the tables, cameras flashing in the dim light. Every click echoes like a shudder on memory itself. On the main workbench lies a tray of watch parts, tiny gears, cracked lenses, broken chains. But one box stands out. Inside it, the investigators find 10 identical pocket watches, each missing its second hand. Each has a date carved on the back, faint, almost erased, the same dates the victims disappeared. Detective Malcolm Reese leans closer, studying them. He didn't just fix time, he murmurs. He froze it. Nearby, a forensic analyst lifts something from the floor, a small brass tag with a number 11 scratched on it. There are only 10 bodies. Outside the shop, the press has already gathered. Reporters shout questions, cameras flash, and the whispers grow. The watchmaker's basement, 10 bodies, maybe more beneath. Evelyn watches from behind the police cordon, her face pale and distant. She can still hear the clocks ticking in her mind, a chorus of seconds that never truly stopped. One of the officers approaches Malcolm. "Sir, the DNA confirms the earliest remains date back more than 20 years. These men didn't die together. He took them one by one." Malcolm looks at the basement wall. 10 marked spaces, one empty hook. The rain had been falling since noon, a cold, unending drizzle that turned the narrow lanes into mirrors of dim light. The watch shop's window glowed faintly behind a veil of steam, its glass fogged from the warmth inside. Thomas Rees was still working, long after the other shops had closed. His hands moved with quiet precision, fitting a brass gear into place. Outside, the streets were nearly empty, except for a young man named Gareth Lloyd, the local postman, on his way home. He often stopped by the shop for small talk and repairs, though Thomas was never much of a conversationalist. That evening, Gareth's wristwatch had stopped mid-shift. The second hand was frozen at 8:12. He knocked on the door. Thomas looked up. The bell jingled softly as Gareth stepped inside, shaking the rain from his coat. The old man didn't smile, he rarely did, but simply gestured toward the counter. The clocks around them ticked unevenly, as if the room itself was off rhythm. A faint creak echoed from the basement door behind the counter. Gareth turned instinctively, but Thomas's voice cut through the ticking, calm, cold, and final. "You shouldn't wander when the clock stops, son." The next morning, his mailbag was found by the riverbank. His watch, perfectly repaired, was returned anonymously to the post office desk. The townspeople called it a disappearance. Thomas called it correction. The room is cold and quiet. Only the soft buzz of lights and the shuffle of latex gloves. Boxes labeled Rees case cover the steel table. Detective Malcolm Rees opens one carefully. Inside lies a leather-bound journal, cracked and faded. A brass clock key hangs from its spine like a bookmark. Each page is filled with neat handwriting. Lists of names, repair notes, and strange phrases beside them. Stopped at dawn, tuned perfectly, silence achieved. There are no emotions, just records, like logs of timepieces rather than people. One entry, dated August 1993, reads, 10 completed. Each second sealed. One final hour remains, my perfect balance. Malcolm glances toward another box marked personal items. Inside rests an unfinished pocket watch, golden, engraved simply with ER. The glass is missing. The hands point to 12:01. Detective Morgan watches quietly, then says under his breath, "Your father didn't just build clocks, he built monuments." Malcolm closes the journal slowly, the sound of paper like a closing door. The street was empty that night. A single light glowed from the window of the watch shop, the only sign of life on Mill Street. Inside, Thomas Rees worked quietly at his bench. His movements were slow, exact, and strangely calm. Every clock in the room ticked at a different rhythm, forming an uneven hum that filled the silence. A knock came on the door. It was Owen Price, a local salesman whose watch Thomas had repaired before. He looked annoyed, tired, a little drunk. "Sorry, old man," he said, forcing a laugh. It stopped again. "Think you can fix it one last time?" Thomas opened the door without a word. Owen stepped inside, shaking rain from his coat. He placed the pocket watch on the counter. Thomas examined it under his magnifier, silent, focused. "Follow me," he said after a pause. "I'll show you what's wrong." He led Owen down the narrow stairs to the basement, the first and only time anyone saw what lay beneath. Metal parts covered the tables. The air smelled of rust and something foul. On the far wall, 9 watches hung neatly, each marked with a number. The 10th hook was empty. Owen frowned. "What is this place?" Before he could turn, Thomas struck. The blow was quick, mechanical, like pulling a lever. A small watch key slipped from his pocket and rolled under the bench. When the clock struck 9, the shop above went silent again. The sky outside was turning orange when Evelyn sat at her small kitchen table. The police had returned her father's personal things, the old leather journal, a few tools, and the unfinished pocket watch engraved with ER. She turned the watch over in her hand. The glass was missing, the hands frozen at 12:01. For a moment, she thought ER stood for her father's initials, Edward Reese. But his name was Thomas. She frowned. Her own name, Evelyn Reese. Her fingers trembled. She pressed the small latch on the back of the pocket watch. It clicked open softly.
Evelyn
Inside,
Reese.
a tiny folded paper rested beneath the gears. She pulled it out. On it, written in her father's neat handwriting. "For the one I couldn't perfect." Her breath caught. The 10th body had been found only weeks before his death, but there had been room for an 11th. She looked toward the window, her reflection faint in the glass. For the first time, she noticed how much she looked like him. The same eyes, the same stillness. The watch in her palm ticked once. Just once. Then it stopped. The sky is pale gray. The ground still wet from last night's rain. A thin fog moves between the graves like a slow breath. Evelyn stands alone beside her father's grave, Evan Roberts, the watchmaker. In her hands lies the unfinished pocket watch that once belonged to him. Its glass is cracked, and the hands are stuck at 12 o'clock. She kneels down, brushing the dust from the stone. "You fix time for everyone but yourself," she whispers, her voice trembling. Behind her, Detective Morgan watches quietly. The case is closed. 10 lives lost, the truth buried deep in the past. But something about it still feels unfinished. Evelyn places the watch on the grave and turns to leave. The morning wind stirs the leaves, soft, rhythmic, almost like ticking. She stops, her breath catching. Slowly she looks back. The pocket watch is moving. Tick, tick, tick. Morgan's eyes widen. "That's impossible," he mutters. Evelyn stares at it, her face pale but calm. A tear slides down her cheek as she says softly, "Maybe time forgave him. Even if I can't." The ticking grows faint. The fog thickens. And as the camera pans upward, the faint whisper of gears turning fades into silence. On screen, The Watchmaker's Daughter, based on unrevealed case files. Closing narration, voiceover. Time never stops. It doesn't care who we lose or what we feel. But in one quiet town, a man tried to stop it. To keep every second, every face from slipping away. 10 clocks stopped. 10 lives ended. And one daughter was left to hear what time could never forget. Some say at sunrise, you can still hear a faint ticking near the graves. Maybe it's just the wind. Or maybe the watchmaker still counts the seconds, waiting for his last hour to end.